At its May 23, 2017 meeting, the Teaneck Council considered 3 ordinances, each to rezone a section of the Township of Teaneck. These proposals came to Council as recommendations from a April 27th Planning Board Master Plan re-examination and had passed unanimously. One ordinance calls for rezoning a key section of Teaneck's historic Greenbelt. A 3-story self-storage building would replace 2 properties, one densely wooded, the other a law office, tucked into a woods. This is one of several short videos where Teaneck residents tell Council how they respond to making this tree-lined Greenbelt into a commercial site.
William Waldman, 939 Columbus Drive. I'd like to talk about the same proposed ordinance.
Closer to the microphone, please, sir.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm concerned about the loss of the greenway and the building of a monstrosity of a self-storage and office building in my residential neighborhood. Not only will it be an eyesore, but traffic in our neighborhood is going to increase dramatically from something like this. This is a quality of life issue in our neighborhood. We don't want a big monstrosity like this. It can't be just about tax revenue in this town. It's got to be more. It's got to be about quality of life. And I just simply want to ask you if you would want such a building right next to you on, say, Redmond Street or Phelps Avenue. I don't want it on Columbus, and I think it shouldn't be allowed. Thank you.
George?
Steve Polonetsky, from Teaneck, New Jersey. I'd like to discuss the same ordinance. So at the time that the Township of Teaneck last time looked to rezone the property back in 2011, one of the neighbors who happened to have also been the Township Attorney of Teaneck for 6 years, as well as the Planning Board Attorney for Teaneck for 16 years, did some research into the property, and he found a court ruling from, it was actually dated, it was Beckman versus the Township of Teaneck from from March 19th of 1951. And some of the background in that ruling was that the property was owned by the state of Phelps, and it was sold to the Township of Teaneck, but there was a contractual provision in there that only allowed the property to be used for certain usage. And I have the ruling actually over here. So to quote from the original contract that's in that ruling between the Township of Teaneck and the former owner of that property, Beckman, it says that it is understood and agreed that the building shall not be used for any purposes except as an office for the transaction of real estate, mortgage, insurance, and building contractor's business, and that no construction material shall be stored on the site outside the main walls of that building. And the lawsuit actually was brought initially from Bergman against the Township of Teaneck because they wanted to actually erect a sign on that property. They initially won, and then the Township of Teaneck took them to New Jersey Supreme Court, and the Township actually won. And according to the provisions of that contract, there was a specific usage that the property was only allowed to be used for. And if I also quote the former Township of Teaneck's attorney, according to him, the ruling suggests that the township has a contract right to enforce a limiting condition on that site as to use, which he highlighted. And if that building is the subject of a development application for other than transactions involving real estate, mortgages, insurance, or to be used as a building contractor's business, the township has a contractual right to say no. And if the township council at some future date forgets to say no, the neighbors, the third-party beneficiaries of that contract would have standing to make them say no in court if necessary. So what I would like to ask the Township of Teaneck is, in light of that ruling, and it sounds like the town has a contractual right to make sure that that property is used for that specific use, not just for any office, but only a specific office involved in real estate and some of the other examples given. So I'd like to ask if, first of all, is the township aware of that ruling that already was ruled by the New Jersey Supreme Court? And if so, does that change, if the township is not aware of that, do you believe that the township has a right now or an obligation to withdraw that ordinance in the light of the fact that it's not legal and it could be subject the town to additional court proceedings and other items? So I'd like to find out if you guys are aware and what the attorney of the town feels based on that former ruling, if it's actually legal, what you're trying to do.
Thank you
very much.
We'll answer all questions at the end.
Yeah.
And, okay, great.
Yeah, can I just take a look at that decision?
Sure.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Sir? Sir, in the back?
David Shar from Teaneck, New Jersey. I wanted to add my name to the list of people objecting to the rezoning by Farragut Avenue to move it from a residential space to a business or commercial space. I realize that one of the proposals was for self-storage or for office space, and that currently there is an office there, but it has extremely low traffic. As the person who owns it spoke earlier, they're only there very few times. There's almost no cars driving through. If it was self-storage or any other office, you'd have cars coming through the driveway, which is the back of it's essentially my backyard, right behind my yard. And you'd have, especially self-storage, you'd have possibly 24-hour a day, or whenever it is, there'll be a lot more cars or trucks that are currently, it's extremely quiet and there's nobody there. So it would change the nature of the area. So I would like to place my name as objecting to that.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rhina Litwin. I've lived on Columbus Drive with my husband since 1980. I want to talk about the intersection of Route 4 and Webster Avenue going into Farragut. I started driving here in 1980 when I moved here with my small children. It was dangerous then, and it has become more dangerous since the apartments were put up in Englewood on Route 4 on both sides. People come off the exit on Route 4 to make the U-turn around. They go very quickly, they don't stop, they cut people off, and I'm here during the day, I'm here at night. It's already a dangerous intersection to try to get on and enter Route 4, especially in front of that building in question. And I'm afraid that if it becomes a bigger building with more parking, that we're going to have accidents and we're going to have more trouble. And I also want to note that in the wintertime, when it snows, it's very often not plowed very cleanly there, and it is very dangerous. And I'm concerned about that in the future, as well as all the additional traffic that will come through our neighborhood. And like was previously said, there are many people who walk in the street in our neighborhood, and people who are not from the area don't realize how slowly you have to go. Columbus Drive, that whole Glencourt area, it looks like big wide streets, and that's fine if you're not from here, but if you live in the neighborhood, it's not a big wide street, and there's not a lot of room for speeding. Luckily, in all the years that we lived there, the most dangerous thing that ever happened was that our neighbor's dog was hit and killed in the street. Luckily, none of our children were harmed that way, but this is a big possibility. We have many, many children living on our street now, and near Farragut also. So please take that into consideration.
Daniel Beer, 299 Glencourt, Teaneck. Unless you're familiar with the area, I'm sure you're not really, but 299 Glencourt happens to have the distinction of being back-to-back with Block 4102, Lot 27, which is where the bulk of any storage unit in this rezoned area would be. So I'd be lying if I said I wasn't partially here on behalf of myself and my family. That storage unit, no matter how tasteful it is, would absolutely destroy my property value with back-to-back. And right now there's woods there. But I think there's a bigger issue, not just for my house and my immediate neighbors. It's something you can't really tell unless you've walked up and down the streets there. Walking down Columbus, Greenwood, Glen, Farragut. If you look out at Teaneck Road is actually raised up. It's about 10, 20 feet above grade. And right now there's trees, 60, 100 feet. I'm sorry, thank you, Route 4. Route 4 is above grade, looking out, from our area, country club area, up towards the rezoning, or potential rezoning. Teaneck Road Route 4 is 10, 20 feet above grade. Trees are 60 to 100 feet. And those trees play a vital part in actually blocking out Route 4. And even if a storage unit was very tasteful, it's not going to replace those trees. You take that away, you're going to see Route 4 towering above our neighborhood. And not just visually. It blocks noise, it blocks light, it blocks fumes. And not just to me, to dozens of houses, hundreds of people. I think this is a major quality of life, health, wellness issue for hundreds of people in the area, and I urge you to reconsider this resolution.
Anyone else? Start in the back. Yeah, you.
My name is Kwase Beasley, and I'm also a resident of Teaneck, New Jersey. And I'm just concerned because, like the other gentleman was speaking about, the quality of life. I mean, first of all, to have a business back there, that means there's more traffic back there. That's not a very visible area. And also, I live next to a house of worship of people that are in the streets. What is that to be said for them? Because now if we have increased car traffic of people that are not used to this neighborhood, that don't understand, the community, what happens then with safety? Because, we live in the neighborhood, we understand, we know how to maneuver our cars. But what about people coming in from the city to utilize this, or coming in from other parts of New Jersey to utilize this storage area? I just don't think that it's a proper fit for somewhere where we deem as a family neighborhood. The whole reason I lived in New York City and the whole reason of moving back to Teaneck was because of, I didn't want to be around the hustle and bustle anymore, and it's a calm-paced neighborhood, and I think it should really stay that way. And I agree, it should be a business. If it's going to be something back there, something like it is now, low traffic, very discreet, because something to have high traffic coming off of Route 4, I just think that's a bit much for our town. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, and good evening, Council. My name is Jerry Litwin. I also live on Columbus Drive. I've lived there since 1980. I want to tell you what has happened in the neighborhood in the last 10, 15 years. One, because of the buildings that have happened in Englewood, I think, there is plenty more wildlife in the area and in my backyard. Deers are in my backyard. Wild turkeys are in my backyard. The more commercial development we have, the more animals we have, the more animals don't have a place to go. And they're in the backyard of all my neighbors. And it makes our backyard is unusable because we're afraid of deer ticks. The deers make a mess, the wild turkeys make a mess, and it is just the quality of life has decreased as a result of construction that has occurred in the neighborhood. Second of all, the Columbus Drive has changed over the last 10, 15 years. There are numerous families who've moved in with 2, 3, 4, 5 children, and there are buses on that street from early morning into the afternoon, busing children to the various schools, and it's a danger to them and to those people who will not necessarily follow all the traffic signs that are in a hurry to get to and from their destination. Columbus Drive is an area which connects indirectly through Route 80 and directly through Cedar Lane to get to Route 4. And there's plenty of traffic on Columbus Drive and plenty of parking, and the last thing we need is more of that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ellie Katz. I live here in Teaneck. Yes, another Ellie Katz. Ellie S. Katz.
He's the more popular Ellie Katz.
I'm here. I'd like to speak against the ordinance number 16-2017, living on East Lawn Court, I live directly on Route 4, or right off of Route 4, and due to the nature of my job, there are many nights where I'm up late at night and I hear countless speeding cars as well as numerous accidents throughout my time here in Teaneck. And just even thinking of having a facility that could be open around the clock, especially if the lights are supposed to be off after a certain time, just can create a significant safety issue in the community, not to mention pollution, deliveries, large trucks and vans of drivers who are not used to the community, not used to the roads, just having to accelerate very heavily just to get onto Route 4. A larger vehicle may have a difficult time doing so and can create accidents and other traffic issues. Not to mention garbage and disposals. We have enough issues with wild animals here in the community. I personally have had issues with wild turkey, deer, fox, and a hedgehog living under my shed. And there are just having another facility that can create more trash and more garbage just invites more creatures into the neighborhood, which we all do not want. Not to mention, on a side note, just inviting drivers who are not knowledgeable of the area. There's a bigger issue, I believe, of drivers going from Route 4 to I-80 and back, using the country club area of the country club drive in the area as a pass-through, and I don't believe that there's enough signage and possibly patrols of the police in the area during high traffic times to properly police the area. I personally have gone over to a few vehicles who have stopped, and namely delivery vehicles who have been speeding through the area and have blown stop signs and then stopped at a residential address. I went over to them and I spoke to them about them missing a stop sign or speeding, and I was out walking my sons, and it was just very disconcerting to me that there's this lack of signage, and it's just a very big safety issue. Thank you.
I think I figured out where all my missing mail has been going.
Hi, my name is Mayor Schlitzer, Teaneck, New Jersey. I have a business in Bergenfield that we happen to sell plastic bags in a variety of forms. And I think it's very important to the Girl Scouts and to anyone involved with this ordinance to understand that if you're gonna, you need to understand the word plastic. And very quickly, if any of you spend any time in a supermarket or in any place of retail, you'll notice that there's a phenomenal amount of product in your home today that's packaged in plastic. And if anyone takes the account how many shopping bags you use a week, or how many garbage bags, or how many Ziploc bags, or how many loaves of bread, or how many packages of frozen vegetables, or how many packs of socks, or how many bags of cotton swabs, and I'll continue and continue, I think the ordinance has to include taxing each of those items. They're all made of the same material, polyethylene. They're just shaped differently. But it's okay, because you could take all that plastic and put it into a garbage bag, which also happens to be made of polyethylene, and it's not taxed. So take into consideration the greater number of product that's used here from a standpoint of they're all the same item. They're just shaped differently. So be educated on that standpoint and understand, are you banning plastic or are you banning bags? Thank you for your time.
Yeah, Mark Glassberg, 273 Glen Court in Teaneck. A number of my neighbors have gotten up and spoken. We also face the property facing the Siegel & Siegel law firm. And I just want to make a couple of points. I'm not going to repeat the arguments or the comments that a number of my neighbors have already made. I would just urge the council to not change the zoning ordinance. And I just want to make two additional points. One is there are dozens of neighbors who could not be here tonight who feel exactly the same way as those of us who are here. We just found out about this literally in the last few days. Maybe we should be more informed and aware of town happenings, but many of us are not. And so there are a large number of neighbors who are extremely concerned about this. That's point number one. Point number two, it's a little bit of deja vu, because many of us stood here in front of the council in 2011 in a very similar kind of situation. I recognize and realize it's not exactly the same things which are being proposed, but many of the arguments and many of the concerns of the dozens of neighbors are the same, and I would urge the town council to seriously consider that and to vote down this change in the zoning law.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Powers?
Powers, Teaneck. I want to start. When I began to get into the question of exactly what it was that is meant by the Greenway, that is the definition Mr. Rupp gives. In every single document I know about, it's described as the Route 4 Greenbelt. And what it turns out to be, I've now dug pretty deeply into this, done a lot of research on it, been over, spent a little time in the county looking at those deeds that you heard about earlier, talking about the question about the legalities, but more importantly, talking to the state, both the Department of Environmental Protection, on the State Historical Preservation Office side, and on the Green Acres side, the vulnerability of this town at this point, after it fought off, apparently, though I don't think most of you knew it, 3 of your officers told the Green Acres that, in fact, the reason that we have the Greenbelt is not really because of open space, but really because we want to have free flow of traffic. Well, I can't find anything in those 85 years that supports that, but that's apparently what we'd said. And if, in fact, it turns out that we're really in the business of commercializing that, I promise very difficult times ahead for this township, because the folks at the state in Trenton are very much aware of what it is that this town is about ready to do, and take a strong commitment to Greenbelt and turn it around and say, we don't care about it, we're just going to commercialize that. I'm sorry, you folks are walking into a very major morass. I don't think your lawyer has prepared you for it, and I suggest you find out what's actually happening. Thank you.
Naomi Kramer, Teaneck. What's upsetting about what is happening tonight with the storage facility is the process. The process was in secret, practically. You had Councilman Katz, Mayor Hamaduddin, and Councilman Pruitt in a small committee deciding and having the planner develop plans based on their recommendations. It never came to the council. It was never discussed fully in public what you were planning to do. And now, when I remember bringing this up because I was at the planning board, and I said, how did this happen? And the mayor said, oh, don't worry, there's so much we have to do before we do anything, that we have to go through all kinds of processes of rezoning. It'll take plenty of time for people to know about this. I know you don't remember saying any of that. Not at the planning board, I said at the council meeting. So now you have this ordinance, quick, boom, 1, 2, 3. And the people who are here who know about it wouldn't know about it because this council notified them. No, they know about it because some citizens got together and made a flyer and gave it out in the neighborhood. So that's how the neighbors found out. You did not do anything to let the public know that this was happening to their neighborhood. Something is wrong with this. Something is wrong with the way you're doing things. Quickly, without public notification, it's just not right. And then, assuming the Greenbelt doesn't exist, just like that, I think the whole thing is not correct. So I would hope you would take into consideration the neighbors and how they feel about this. And also, what's upsetting to me is that because the owners of the property, you have 2 lawyers, have a contract. He said he had a contract with a self-store. I didn't quite understand what I was hearing. He has a contract with a self-storage, so now you go ahead and rezone because these two lawyers need to sell their property? What'll happen once you start building on Route 4, that a few people who own houses along Route 4 will say, gee, why don't we do that? No, you're shaking your head. I don't believe you. Thank you.
Glad that we are outliers in protecting those people in need. I'm glad that Teaneck was an outlier in becoming the first community in this nation in 1964 to vote to integrate the schools, that put us on the map as the inclusive, progressive community that we are. I'm glad that those people who sat here before you and I did voted to keep open space and quality of life uppermost and put in a Greenbelt. I am glad, and I hope Teaneck remains an outlier.
Sir, in the